All right, welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Do you know what kind of business you have to run, what kind of customer service you have to provide to survive for 100 years? To have 4 different generations involved in your business, you have to have a darn good business. That's what you have to have, and that's what A.G. Hines Company is. East Tennessee's best when it comes to building materials and tools. Don't go to one of the big box stores that you always hear about that's always advertising the NFL. A.G. Hines Company is local. They got everything they've got at better pricing with the expertise from a century's worth of work to help you plan your project. A.G. Hines Company. You see the phone number. You can check them out online, or you can visit them on Hines Street in downtown Knoxville. All right, we continue to talk about some of the players and position groups that Josh Heupel and the other assistants have bragged on either yesterday or this past week. And one of the guys on the defensive side of the ball who's gotten some praise is defensive tackle Elijah Simmons. Got big praise yesterday. Heupel, part of the quote was, he's violent and disruptive. Here's the word again. He has a chance to be a special player and have a special season. Special may not be special to Josh Heupel, or maybe he's seeing some guys that he thinks will be special. Will Overstreet, former defensive lineman. We got a couple of these guys to talk about here, so I'll start with you. Elijah Simmons, if you've got a guy in the middle that can be violent and disruptive, that'd be a step in the right direction.
That would be a step in the right direction. I mean, the most important spot to have pass rush really and truly from is up the middle. If you can get a guy that's pushing the pocket up the middle and pushing the quarterback to step back, it makes the edge rusher's job a lot easier. You can have less great talent at the edge and be able to come up with some numbers and actually get some sacks. So coming up the middle, if you have a strong presence up there, it's usually going to require double team. That usually allows you to do other things in blitzes and get some more pressure. That one guy can be a very key position.
We saw Simmons in 10 games last year. Question is, how does this team utilize him in Tim Banks' system, and does that suit him even better than last year's system under Pruitt? Your thoughts on Simmons?
Well, I think with the defensive line is they bring back a number of veteran players, which is good for sure. Like Matthew Butler coming back. You have some of the super seniors are on the defensive line. But we've also seen the defensive line not be very good over the last couple of years. And I think for several reasons, having a full-time defensive line coach again probably helps with that. But my question has been, can somebody else emerge? Amari Thomas is somebody we've talked about, probably not enough of Elijah Simmons. Jimmy, I think if some of the younger players start to develop and push some of those veterans and provide more depth, that's what you need for the defense.
Yeah, I think so, to be special. But one of the things, too, is that you kind of, in my opinion, you kind of know what you're going to get out of Butler and Solomon, those guys that have been around a while. If you can have some people emerge like Simmons, who's a big body, strong, and if you can have a pass rusher like Young stepping forward, that's really going to help this defensive line. I think the defensive line still has a chance to be pretty decent. Now, when I watched them in that open scrimmage, the open practices on that Saturday, the defensive line didn't look good at all. But I'll temper that by saying I don't exactly know who was out there all the time. They may have had some injuries up front. But I think if you can have some of these young guys emerge and be difference makers, because I don't think any of the seniors are difference makers. You need some difference makers up front.
Byron Young, JUCO transfer. There was a lot of hype surrounding him. We've seen that before, Jonathan Kongbo. So I'm a little leery of jumping in with both feet on hooray. At the same time, he's getting some good praise from the coaching staff over there for actually being able to get some pressure off the edge. The outside linebackers coach praised him. The defensive line coach praised him. And Josh Heupel said good things about him.
If he can turn into, and this is a big reach, I get that, but if he can come close to what Darrell Taylor gave you, somebody that could be a pretty consistent pass rusher, which Taylor was his last year at Tennessee, that's going to help a lot. Now, on the other side, is it Roman Harrison? Is it somebody else who's going to step up? I'm not sure. But if he can come through and play and be the pass rusher that Rodney Garner's talking about, that the defensive coordinator, that the head coach is talking about, that can make a huge difference on this defense.
Josh, your thoughts? Byron Young?
Yeah, just you need pass rush. So
desperately.
Isn't every Tennessee fan probably a little bit hesitant when you hear junior college and potential? But that shouldn't be held against Byron Young. If he can help them rush the passer, and it's everybody. But yet, from the last few years, you have to replace Taylor, you have to replace DeAndre Johnson, who transferred. Kavon Bennett, who was dismissed during the season, but that's your production there the last few years. So those guys, Tyler Barron, they all have to step up.
Will, Jimmy mentioned it last week. Mentioned what we saw last week after the open practice, and we talked about on this show was the fact that the offense got the better of the defense time after time after time. This week, Josh Heupel went out of his way to praise the defensive effort and energy yesterday after the scrimmage. He also said, I thought our front four did a great job playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage and being disruptive. There's that word again. Getting after the quarterback as well. Always concerned if you see that your defensive line's looking good, is that a sign that they're good, or is that a sign that your offensive line took a step back? But your thoughts on the fact that the defense, after a bad week, got a little love yesterday from the head coach?
Yeah, it can be a lot of things. It can be a confidence builder. It can be something where you have to motivate these guys and give them a little bit of confidence and a little bit of encouragement that maybe they'll live up to it. It can also be that, they did have a bad week, and then they had a better practice, and they started getting better to the pace of this offense and realized what it was, and they were able to step up and have a better week. And let's face it, they had a whole year without coaching, right? So you got to think a few coaches into practices into it. They are learning some more things. They may be getting better because the year before they were a lot better with a certain coach that went to South Carolina that they ran off, and then they went backwards. And so now you maybe have coaching staff that he knows what he's doing there. He's a good defensive coach, so he can get them in that position.
Are you trying to tell me that it might not have been a good idea to fire your defensive line coach 4 weeks into the season? Because come on,
there's something around.
That's
not
crazy.
Many people do that. I don't know.
That's crazy talk. They have talked about the fact, Josh Heupel specifically has talked about the fact that he does believe this defensive line, which is being asked to do something completely different than what Jeremy Pruitt had asked them to do, that they did seem to have a light come on this week a little bit, and they're starting to understand Tim Banks' defense a little bit better. Maybe that happened. Maybe it took a bad open practice and everyone calling them out for something to click. Maybe it was just timing, or maybe they're just trying to make them feel better. But either way, if that's the case, if it's true, certainly a step in the right direction. When we come back, the orange and white game comes up next Saturday. What should fans and media be watching most closely? What should we be focused on? What areas should be watching? We'll talk about that next on the Sports Source. Come on back.